2-0 sweep with the complimentary plays on Friday, cashing in the NBA with the Phoenix Suns, and in college basketball, giving you Colorado 32 and 16 roll with the college complimentary plays dating back to last November here on the video report. Now, if you didn't catch Friday's video report, and I know I've not exactly been doing many weekday video reports here this fall and winter, make sure you subscribe down there in the corner so you will always be alerted, because I am going to try to do more frequent video reports now as basketball ramps up, especially with college conference action. So today I've got 3 college comp plays coming your way. But of course, we also have that little football game, Army, Navy. And you know it's Saturday, and you know how hot I have been in college football on Saturday. And I can tell you today, not only am I going for Saturday best bet winner number 12 out of 15, but football winner number 19 out of 25 overall, winning day number 20 out of 30, and top rated 15 dime football winner number 10 out of 12. It's the Army Navy side. And once again, the best bet winner, just like all the others, is going to be the half price play of the day over at DeMarcosports.com using coupon code HALF, HALF. And reminder, it's a 15 dime play, just as strong as the Rams outright over the 49ers on Thursday. And again, it's the half price play of the day over at DeMarcosports.com. And who am I? Well, if you haven't figured that out right now, it's Al DeMarco, General Manager of DeMarcosports.com, and this is going to be your Saturday video report. Hey, before I go any further, quickly, let me just talk about basketball betting for a second here. When it comes to the NBA, I think you are crazy if you bet the NBA early. Now, I'm the first one to tell you that you bet the favorites early 99% of the time and the underdogs late. But in the NBA, and I talked about it briefly yesterday in the video report, and I mentioned it at other times, the most important thing that you have to look at is the NBA injury report. Now, if the team that you are considering betting has some injuries, you don't have to be a handicapper like me. You can do it yourself. You can go to NBA.com and look at the injury report. They update it. Hell, you can get the first injury report at midnight, 12:30 in the morning usually. And they update it frequently, sometimes an hour every 2 hours throughout the day. And you can look at the injuries. But it's important to consider that when teams have their shoot-arounds, usually the East Coast teams, if they're playing on the East Coast or in the Midwest, you're going to get the updated injuries coming through on NBA.com around 1:30, 2:30, maybe 3 o'clock at the latest. If it's a West Coast team, well, you're going to look at those injuries probably a little later in the afternoon, maybe around that 3 o'clock time. That's why often, if I do the video reports and it has NBA free plays, that's why I push the videos a little later in the day. And sometimes even my releases will not be available if they're NBA centric until about 3 o'clock Eastern time in the afternoon, because it's so important. And you look at yesterday, I had to play in the Phoenix Suns. That line was 8.5 to 9 early in the day against Utah. And then the Jazz, as I did it live on the video report, when they had to shoot around, then suddenly Lauri Markkanen and Jordan Clarkson and Kyle Filipowski all of a sudden went from out to questionable to being available and probable. That line dropped to 7. And how beneficial was it that the Suns won by 8? So that's the important in the NBA. Now, college basketball. The key to betting college basketball and handicapping college basketball is really simple. You've got a monster card. You've got to narrow down that card, like I say in everything. But to me, I think that you've got to concentrate the most where the odds makers concentrate the least. Now, I've been touting that little phrase for years and years and years. I do it in college football too, but I think in college basketball, you will often find the value in staying away from the marquee games. Now, I'm going to talk about one of them today, and it's Tennessee and Illinois, but often it's those under the radar games that you will find the best value. Because let's face it, guys, the odds makers are setting the prices on these games. Do you think they are evaluating every single game with a fine-tooth comb? They are not. That's my job, to look at the card. So with that being said, let's get busy and let's talk about some of these games today. I think, again, my top college play today, and since my top play today is in college football, if I was wagering in college basketball today for my top play, I would actually go with Washington State at home against Missouri State. And it's kind of interesting, and I will tell you why. Because there is another handicapper at the site today at DeMarcosports.com whose opinion in college basketball I really respect, and I can't tell you who it is because I'd screw him with his sales today. But he actually has the same play that I'm going to tell you about here. So let me tell you why I like Washington State. Now, 3 games ago, they were playing in Palm Springs in a tournament, and they were playing SMU. And SMU, guys, is a pretty good team, 7-2 on the season. And SMU just beat the hell out of Washington State on the boards. I mean, dominated them on the boards. And as a result, SMU had 22 offensive rebounds in that game, outscored Washington State 21-6 in second chance points, points in the paint. SMU 44-18. So you would think that after that performance, Washington State would be in the doldrums. No. The Cougars go to Reno and take on a very good Nevada team, a Nevada team that has played exceptionally well at the Lawler Event Center under Steve Alford the past couple of years. And I thought, looking at that game, and I follow at Nevada Sportsnet Chris Murray, the beat writer who writes about the Wolfpack. I follow every one of his stories when he files because he always has 3 keys to a victory and then a projection. And I followed him for years. And I looked at his preview for that game. And what happened? Washington State had a big second half, and they won that game outright. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. You get hammered by SMU, and then you beat Nevada. And Nevada has a big front line. They go 6'9", 6'9", 6'7". And I thought, well, that's kind of an interesting game. And I thought, okay, let me evaluate Washington State in the next game. Next game, they were like a 9.5-point underdog at Boise State. Well, Boise State is the preseason favorite to win the Mountain West Conference. They won that game 74-69. Okay. So now they're at home tonight, right? Now, you know Washington State, exiled. They're playing in the West Coast Conference this season. And Washington State tonight is an 11-point favorite against Missouri State. Okay, so they're playing the West Coast Conference this year, but they're really a de facto Pac-12 conference team, right? And Missouri State comes from the Missouri Valley Conference, unequal weight, right? And Washington State's only 2 losses this year, SMU and Iowa. And that Iowa game was played, I believe, in Moline, Illinois. Still, you might as well say it was more beneficial for Iowa in terms of the travel arrangements there. You got Washington State minus 11 at home. You got Missouri State coming in. If I use KenPom exclusively, and there's a lot of data at that site, but I look at the ratings. You've got Washington State 74. You got Missouri State. I can't even go that low, 196. Okay. And you've got a strength of schedule rating where Washington State's strength of schedule is 94 out of 364 Division I teams. You got Missouri State at 214. Missouri State just lost their conference opener at home against Indiana State, shot poorly in this game. And Missouri State, their defensive field goal percentage, 47.4. And it's a hell of a long travel from where Missouri State is based. I think that's Springfield, Ohio, to Pullman, Washington. That's why I like Washington State tonight. That would be complimentary play number 1. Complimentary play number 2 is going to be Kansas minus the 14 at home against NC State. Again, I look at the strength of schedule between these 2 teams. Kansas is coming off back-to-back losses, okay? Not a good situation. Obviously, they lost to Missouri and lost to who the hell did they lose to? The other, I'll come back to it. I'll think about it here in a minute. It's up there someplace. But I look at the strength of schedule. Kansas, the 15th toughest schedule, according to KenPom.com this season, right? North Carolina State, 304 out of 364 Division I teams. First true road game for the Wolfpack. In tournament play this year, they lost to Texas by 4, lost to BYU by 11, lost to Purdue by 10. Hell, in their last game in Raleigh, the Wolfpack barely escaped with a 10-point win as a 32-point favorite against Coppin State. Before that, they needed an overtime to beat a Florida State team that might finish at the bottom of the ACC standings this year. So I'm just not that impressed by them. And again, Creighton, that was the team that stopped Kansas. Kansas was number one in the country. Now they dropped down. But again, I just think that Kansas is the superior team. They beat North Carolina, they beat Michigan, they knocked off Duke. Mm, what can I tell you? I mean, I just think Kansas is in a good position. Bill Self put together a team here. He got a lot of transfer portal guys. AJ Store from Wisconsin, Zeke Mayo from South Dakota State, brought in Rayland Griffin from Alabama. I mean, these are good veterans. They just haven't meshed here. And as a team, they've done a lousy job on the boards. They just don't get to the free throw line that often. So they're laying 14 points. Listen, if you go by the projected final score margins at Ken Palm and another site that I use, Bart Torvik, they project 13-point victory. So it's not like they're, going with overwhelming margins here by Kansas. But it's interesting that under Bill Self, Kansas coming off a straight up loss. And the next game is 27-13-1 against the spread. If that next game, as in the Allen Fieldhouse, they're 14-4-1 against the spread. And again, I think the Wolfpack, although 7-3 on the season, in the step-up games, as I like to call it, they failed. And first true road game, I think it's a good spot to take Kansas. So your final complimentary play, a big rivalry game. It's it's going to be the 92nd Skyline Chili Crosstown Shootout. Every time I fly into Cincinnati, when I drive down to Ohio State, I see the Skyline Chili places. I don't like chili. I wouldn't eat chili if you paid me. If they told me tomorrow it would cure your leukemia, I still wouldn't eat chili. Bottom line. But I see them all over the place. And it's being played at the Fifth Third Arena. Another thing I don't understand. The banks, Fifth Third Bank. What a strange name. I don't know the origin, but it doesn't make sense to me. Anyway, these two campuses, which I visited, Cincinnati Xavier, it's not Xavier, by the way, it's Xavier. They're 3 miles apart from each other. So it's interesting because the Musketeers have won the last 5 games in this series. And hell, they have won 9 of the last 11. Today, they are a 7.5-point dog. I think in this type of series, you got to take Sean Miller's team to stay within the number because it's always been a nip and tuck affair. Xavier went out and one of their big transfer portal acquisitions, might as well call it an acquisition, right? Ryan Conwell, who, if you remember, is a member of Indiana State last year. He just killed Cincinnati in the NIT quarterfinals with his outside shooting. Well, he's the number 2 scorer on Xavier coming into this game with 16.4 points a game. And Zach Freemantle, the 6'9 forward, he is healthy right now. He's leading Xavier and is their top rebounder as well at 16.8 points a game. So I think you're going to see a game that's probably going to be like 75, 70, 77, 72. I think Cincinnati wins this game, but I think it's going to go down to the wire. It's going to be a hell of an atmosphere. I always am a little hesitant to dip my toes into these rivalry type of affairs, but I think that this is a good spot to take Xavier in this particular game. So once again, I'm going to go Xavier. And one more play. Let's talk about a real marquee game. Tennessee and Illinois. The number 1 team in the nation is Tennessee. Tennessee is a 1.5-point favorite at Illinois. Second true road game this season. But listen, the Vols have beaten Baylor, a damn good Baylor team, by 15. Louisville, that was their only true road game this season. And Louisville, they beat them by 22. Beat Virginia by 22, beat Syracuse by 26, beat Miami by 15 in their last game, 9-0 on the season. Illinois is 7-2, 6-0 at home. But the Illini, okay, I can forgive them for losing by 13 points to Alabama, but I'm not sure how you lose by 4 points, even though it was on the road to Northwestern. Yes, they did beat Arkansas by 13. They did beat Wisconsin by 6. Tennessee won by 7 at home last year, so obviously it's a revenge game for the Illini, who I don't think are as strong as they were a year ago. It'll be a contrast in tempo here because the Illini play fast in Ken Palm in terms of tempo. They are the 31st fastest team in the nation. Tennessee likes to play slow, deliberate. It's a Rick Barnes coach team. What do you expect? 262 in terms of tempo. So a huge difference here. One thing I like to do over at KenPom, where they rank all the teams in terms of their offensive and defensive efficiency. And that means the points allowed or the points scored per 100 possessions. So then I do the difference between the two and I compare that differential to the actual line in the game. So I'm not going to go through all the metrics, but what I am going to tell you is the differential is 9 between the ratings, 9, and it favors Tennessee. And the differential of 9 versus a point spread of 1.5, well, let's do the simple math, right? 9 versus a line of 1.5. When I see a differential of 4 or more, that's a play for me. And that's why I like Tennessee in this game. I think it's going to be a nip and tuck affair. I think it's going to be a 3 or 4 point game, but I like the Volunteers in this spot. So let's rank these plays. And I'm ranking them actually pretty close to the order that I gave you with one slight change. So Washington State is going to be number 1. Washington State, that game, by the way, goes at 5 o'clock Eastern time. So Washington State is number 1. Tennessee is going to be number 2. And that game goes at 5:30 Eastern time. Tennessee is number 2. Number 3 is going to be uh, yeah, I'm going to go with Xavier. I'm going to go with Xavier to stay within the number against Cincinnati. That game goes at 2 o'clock Eastern time. And number 4 is going to be Kansas at the Fieldhouse at 3:15 Eastern. So again, it's going to be Washington State number 1, Tennessee number 2, Xavier number 3, and Kansas number 4. So instead of 3 free picks, I gave you 4 today. Bitch and moan about it if you'd like. That'll do it today. And guys, we'll talk to you again tomorrow, Sunday, for NFL action. Good luck, everybody.